Sure. Thank you, Nicola. What a great day. I agree with Alan. What an exciting time, right? And so many things happening. So I'm happy to close this session. So just out of curiosity, who has published with Eli for a minute? Yeah? Okay, that's good. Great. Thank you. So let me tell you a bit about for perhaps some of you who don't know eLife, like what is this journal? So it all started in 2012 as an independent and non-profit journal led by scientists. It published now what is called reviewed preprints in the life and medical sciences. And I'll tell you more about what we call the reviewed preprints. It develops also open source platforms to support the review and the organization of journal and the dissemination of research. It promotes openness, integrity, and equity, as well as diversity and inclusion. We're tasked from our founders, as you can see here below their logos, to change scientific publishing, all right, and for the best, obviously. So how does it work? So that's basically the life cycle of a paper at eLife. So first, we only take for submission papers that have been posted on preprint servers, and most usually either bioRxiv or medRxiv. And then the paper is evaluated by editors, like a senior editor, about 3 to 5 reviewing editors, and a decision is made about whether this paper should be actually sent for more in-depth review by expert reviewers. Then the paper is reviewed, and the reviews are shared with the authors, and then it becomes pretty classic here. Just the difference is that you're gonna see these reviews are made public very quickly, and the author have, of course, sometimes respond to address these reviews and to correct the online version of the paper. So let me go through this again. Only preprints. Here, can we produce broadly useful reviews? That the question we ask ourselves as reviewing editors, like, are we gonna find reviewers, like at least 2 or 3 reviewers for this paper? Is the manuscript gonna benefit from external reviews, right? So this is the really question we're asking here. Not necessarily, is it a breakthrough? Is it novel? Is it something that really have an impact? That's not on the table. Really, is the study gonna benefit from external reviews? And once actually the decision is made to submit this paper for external review, the paper will not be rejected. There's no rejection at eLife. The output of this process is the peer reviews, as I told you before, and an assessment by the editor, which is public, which is a short summary of the study that basically describes, the content and how valuable this research for the community. Here, the authors have 2 weeks to actually address like some factual errors in the reviews, because this is gonna be made public on the website. So if there's a blatant mistake, by one of the reviewers, the authors can actually get back to us and say, wait a minute, please, this has to be corrected. However, then, it's published, there's immediately a DOI associated with the paper. And as I told you, then basically the author can revise the manuscript. Then basically the public reviews by the reviewers can be updated. The life assessment can also be updated depending actually on the response. And at the end of this process, the authors can decide to actually make it officially an article by actually, agreeing to have a version of Record VOR, which will then make it, accessible on PubMed or any other index database. And it's then a real article, meaning that you cannot submit, the study to another journal, right? This is really important. However, you can also decide that you do not want a VOR, and in such case, the article, the reviews, the eLife assessment are still online, but you can submit your paper to another journal if you'd like to, right? So you're basically, as an author, this is really the here the mindset, I would say, is that the author are in control of the manuscript. It's not the editors or the reviewers, it's really the authors. All right. So about 94% of the papers, and of course, are revised by their authors, and some go straight to version of Record. There are a few cases of like papers being sent to another journal, but it's pretty rare. So how does it look online? Perhaps you're familiar with this. I guess that you've been on ELF website before, but this is typically what it looks like. You know, of course, the title, the abstract. You can see here you have directly access in this tab to the public peer reviews, and they are available immediately once it's published. And here you see on the right-hand side the stage in the peer review process. So you know whether actually this article has been reviewed only once, that the authors have not yet addressed the public reviews. So you'll even as a reader, you're fully aware of what's going on with this study. And then basically, the important thing I was telling you before is that there's an e-life assessment. So this is a short paragraph written by the editor that basically describe, again, the quality of the paper. And it's written, it's actually provided right below the abstract. So as written here, it's pretty difficult to miss, right? You'll see it immediately when you read the paper. And again, here on the right, the stage in the peer review process. So these e-life assessments, actually, there's a very, I would say, controlled, vocabulary here. It's a very strict vocabulary that is used on this abstract, which basically describe again two, aspects of the study. One is the significance of the findings, and basically in every e-life assessment, one of these 5 keywords has to appear, usually in the first or second sentence. It goes from this is a useful study, that can basically be, useful for the community, and usually it's like really perhaps like a niche community, or this is a tool that resembles some other tool but slightly better. And it goes to a landmark study, and there's been a few of them. Like this is like a breakthrough study that really changed the way we think of a system or a phenomenon in the in biology in general. All right, so that's about the findings. On the other hand, you have the strength of the evidence, and these two actually are not necessarily correlated, right? So even if it's like an extremely important study, we could say, or the reviewers and the editor could say, but wait a minute. So it's great, but the evidence, are not sufficient. They are just solid for now. You could perhaps actually, by doing this other set of analysis, make it more convincing, if not compelling. And why not exceptional? On the other hand, usually, studies that turn out not to be super solid or not even useful, sometimes the evidence also are either incomplete and potentially inadequate. And just to have you an idea is that if they are evaluated as inadequate, it actually raises a red flag, and it's in the entire system. It goes up to the editor-in-chief, and these are pretty complicated decisions to make. It happened once to me for one paper, and it was a difficult case. So here are more examples. I'm not going to read you this e-life assessment, but as I was telling you on the left, this is a really typical assessment with in the first sentence, the first keyword about significance of finding. The study presents a fundamental finding on how levels of blah blah blah, what is found here. So the word fundamental here, this is one of the 5 words that basically has to be used in the assessment to describe the strength of the findings. All right, and somewhere else you see here, I guess, the third sentence, the evidence is compelling. All right. And another here, a life assessment, which is interesting because now this is not not really like a typical research study. They describe a Python package. So, sometimes it's harder to evaluate. But here in this case, it was basically said, and it's in the last sentence, the methods are solid and are likely to provide a useful tool for scientists. All right. So there's always one word describing the findings. There could be 2 words about the strength of the evidence, because sometimes it's this part is extremely, solid or very compelling. However, this one is incomplete, and you give the authors a chance to actually address this point, and basically, the assessment can be reevaluated after the authors address the reviews. So the benefits of the e-life model. First, the average time for a paper to be published is 94 days, which is much shorter than most journals out there, especially in biology, where things can take, ages. The average is 260 days for other journals. Richer yet still compact assessment. for use in hiring and funding decision. And this is really important to us. It means that basically, it's not because it's a, Cell Nature, whatever paper, say, look, yes, it was published in eLife, but please have a look at the eLife assessment. Here, the editors have said that it was a fundamental study. And it doesn't matter which journal it was published in. This community, this group of people clearly know and are telling, publicly that it is an extremely important study, all right? Transparency increases scrutiny, with reviewed preprints and the specific eLife assessment vocabulary, the reviewers and the authors' comments are all publicly and freely accessible. So there's no, period gatekeeping, there's no thing that basically, are happening, behind closed doors. There's no private or confidential comments to the editor. Everything is public. And by experience now, it's been many years for me. I've been on this job as an editor at eLife. One thing people do not realize, it's not only great for the community to basically be able to read the comments and the reviews, but there's also a lot of peer pressure among the reviewers. Because even if the reviews remain anonymous to the authors and publicly, they are not anonymous among the reviewers. And there's this moment of discussion between reviewers and the editor when we're basically agreeing on the assessment, in which basically the reviewer has to talk to each other with the editor. And it's not anonymous. And basically, if you've written something pretty unfair, or if you've done like a really bad job of reviewing the paper, this is when you feel the peer pressure of other reviewers say, hey, you're wrong. Have you read the article? So it's actually quite interesting, the I guess social dynamic there. And usually people knowing that, they write pretty great reviews at eLife. Published output aligned with standard requirements, of course, and more control to authors, e.g. on for example, on the revision declaration of the version of report, as I was saying before. And it promotes scientists' evaluation based on what, not where they publish. Again, with what I said before. And the publishing fees, they are not $4.75, we're sorry, but they're like $2,500, which is reasonable, much less than many other journals. Again, this is a non-for-profit organization, but there are costs, there are like a lot of people on staff that actually do an amazing job at, recruiting the reviewers and following on papers and making sure that everything is well written and well written on the website. And they are super, super helpful. I can tell you, they are super responsive at any time of the day. So yeah, that's the cost, that basically of the eLife paper. So there's been also, and I think this is quite interesting, considering everything we've discussed today, this other class of articles called the executive research articles. So they started at some point, and as I was said before, the NeuroLibre paper was actually one of these. It's on hold right now because actually there's a massive update of the system. So it's gonna go back online, not clear when, but like within the year, I guess, like 2025 perhaps. But the idea was, aligned with what we've discussed before, is that now within the website, you have this interactive figure that basically can run code online and display actually, and you can even change parameters. It's very dynamic. So that's the whole idea that basically an article is not just a PDF. The figures should be dynamic and should basically be able to, dynamically display data. And the reader should be able to actually please with the data and make sure that they believe in the evidence here and the analysis, and that the code is available, and that all this is basically combined into a dynamic paper online. So eLife is currently receiving a lot of public support, also that drives the down the cost of publishing from many foundations. I'm not gonna cite them, and many that are extremely famous. So yeah, and without this public support, clearly the cost will be higher. But this is what makes the system up and running for now. All right. So thank you very much for your attention, and I'll be happy to take any questions later.